Avatar The Last Airbender is and will always be a huge inspiration for aspiring writers like me. I've always loved the show's deep exploration of ancient philosophies, its immersive world building, and imaginative lore. It wasn't until I decided to become a yoga teacher, and thus began reading lots of important scriptures on Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoism, that I understood the essence of Avatar, the myths, legends, and cultural tales that it was built on. I recognized so many elements that it sparked a bit of intrigue toward learning more about the inspirations for Avatar's memorable story, specifically for the characters that are less talked about. 13 years since I first experienced the show, and I'm still not quite over the fact that it ended, which makes me indescribably grateful that the creators put in so many more details to be explored, so that we can keep theorizing and fantasizing about the story in our own imagination. The spirit world has always marveled me most, while also creeping me out a little bit. I still remember just how terrified I was by Ko when I first watched the show. I didn't want to ruin that mystical experience by explaining or theorizing how everything came to be. But knowing that nothing in Avatar is an accident and can be ascribed some sort of meaning, I began wondering what some of those meetings between Aang and certain spirits could have meant on a narrative level, and what the inspiration was for the design and roles of the mystical creatures. I'm also in the process of writing my own fantasy story, so I'm always eager to know about the influences that have inspired my favorite stories, and how I can learn from a creator's way of putting their own spin on it. I'll discuss the spirits in order of appearance in the story, so let's start with my personal favorite. Isn't he so cute? Although, we've also seen a darker side of Heibai. We first meet Heibai in episode 7 of season 1 when the gang stumbles upon a village that's being terrorized by an evil spirit. Aang, being the Avatar, the bridge between two worlds, decides to explore the issue and encounters Heibai in his less adorable form. It's theorized the design for Heibai's monstrous appearance is based on Fourth Angel from Rebuild of Evangelion. I can see the resemblance, although I couldn't find a source where the creators explicitly stated this. But we do know the creators tend to draw inspiration from Ghibli and anime. It is a common belief in Asia that spirits typically take on the incarnations of animals, which explains Heibai's dual form. Heibai is the only spirit who has been seen in more than one appearance, and I think it's a nod to the panda's bicolored fur, alluding to his two-sidedness. White often representing peace in Asian culture, and black representing destruction. Because of the strong influence of Chinese myth and lore on the show, Heibai could have been based on two deities in Chinese folk religion called Heibai Wuchang, which translates to black and white impermanence. The black and white part is obvious, and the impermanence probably refers to Heibai being a spirit. As demonstrated in the show, Heibai can show up either pissed or peaceful. This also corresponds to the Chinese myth in the way that sometimes the Heibai Wuchang show up as one being, called the Wuchang Gui, which means ghost of impermanence. Ah, now we're getting somewhere. The myth continues that the spirit can either appear as a malevolent deity or a fortune deity, depending on the person it encounters. The malevolent deity will punish the encountered person for committing evil, while the fortune deity will reward a person's good deeds. We've seen all of this to line up perfectly with the show, in which Heibai punishes the village for destroying the forest he protected, and in the end, Heibai rewards Aang, showing him walk away with fresh bamboo growing behind him, symbolizing renewal. As for the role Heibai played when Aang re-encounters him, he's mostly shown to help Aang move in and out of the spirit world. According to Heibai Wuchang, the two deities are in charge of guiding spirits of the dead to the underworld. Tui and La are the moon and ocean spirits incarnated as koi. Tui, the incarnation of the moon spirit, is the white fish with the black dot. The name means push in Mandarin. La, the incarnation of the ocean spirit, is the black fish with the white dot. The name means pull in Mandarin. I must say that upon researching the philosophy behind Tui and La, I was a bit confused. According to the philosophy of yin and yang, yin represents receptive energy, while yang represents active energy. Yet in the show, Tui represents the pushing energy and corresponds to the moon, which is static and passive. Wouldn't it have made more sense to have La, the ocean spirit, being the pushing force, considering the ocean is always in motion, and therefore better represents the active energy that Yang stands for? I think they somehow reversed the roles or the names of the koi or something, but I might just be confused myself. Help me out here and let me know in the comments. Anyway, maybe you're wondering what the relationship is between the moon and the ocean. Take a look at the moon cycle. Notice how the terms for the moon phases correspond to the waxing and waning of the sea. The moon's gravitational pull is also responsible for the tides on Earth in real life. The more you know. The waxing and waning of the ocean and the moon symbolize the interaction between the two forces, yin and yang. In the West, it's often believed that yang represents evil and yin represents goodness, which isn't true. That would mean you could simply get rid of yang and only be left with goodness. But the reality isn't so black and white. Sorry, I just had to fit that one in somewhere. This is even shown in the design of Tui and La, which is obviously based on the Taijutsu symbol. The white side contains a black dot and the black side a white dot, which means they are codependent. The show did a fantastic job at portraying what happens when you take one away in an effort to correct the faulty interpretation of yin and yang in the West. I particularly love the animation and how they use color to symbolize the consequences. The world turned red when Tui was in danger, and completely lost its color when harmed by Zhao, enter Jonas from The Giver. On a more racial point of view, I really appreciate how the show enforces the idea that every side needs each other and is codependent, especially in a children's show, to prevent kids from adopting the idea that one group can be dismissed and might even be villainized. Only to completely botch that idea in... Sorry, moving on. Alright, so the Bafoon Spirit only briefly appears in the show, and in only one episode, but his story is perhaps the most interesting and kind of funny how they chose to play it out in the show. We know the theme and philosophy of Avatar to be based mostly on Hindu culture and religion. Hanuman is actually a minor deity and a divine companion of the god Rama. Now you may wonder, did you actually name the spirit? And I can assure you I wouldn't have been able to come up with such a cool name. Speaking of which, his name is Sanskrit and knows a few different definitions. First and foremost, Hanu loosely translates to jaw or prominent jaw, and man to one having, which roughly equates to having a prominent or disfigured jaw. Now I know, this definition sounds really random without context, so let me tell you about it. Once upon a time, there was a young deity named Hanuman, the son of the wind god, Vayu. One day, Hanuman was hungry and mistook the rising red sun for a sweet, ripe fruit. In an attempt to reach it, he leapt up, which Indra, the king of gods, saw and disapproved. So he struck Hanuman down with a thunderbolt. The lightning hit Hanuman's jaw and he fell to the ground, lifeless. Vayu was obviously upset and retaliated, suffocating the earth by withdrawing all air from it. This prompted Shiva, the god of destruction, to intervene and revive Hanuman. To make up for his mistake, Indra granted Hanuman a wish to become as indestructible as his Vaira, a weapon as strong as diamond. Other gods then followed Indra's generosity and also granted Hanuman wishes. Hanuman couldn't be harmed by fire, given by the fire god Agni. Does this name ring a bell? Neither could he be harmed by water, given by Varuna. He also couldn't be harmed by air. Brahma further fulfilled his wish to move to any place where he cannot be stopped. Vishnu gave him a weapon called Gada, which isn't portrayed in the show. Kind of a missed opportunity. So, all these powers kinda make Hanuman immortal and undestroyable. Let's be glad Aang didn't have to fight him, cause I don't think he would have won. So how does this relate to the series? Well, the tale goes on to explain that Hanuman liked to use his powers to prank innocent bystanders, until he picked the wrong victim. When he tried to prank a meditating sage, the sage reacted in fury and cursed Hanuman to forget most of his granted powers. The curse continues to affect him until he remembers his powers in adulthood. When we first meet this Bafoon Spirit, he seems to have kind of a disdain for Aang. His literal first words to Aang are, I have a theory that the Bafoon Spirit is indeed based on Hanuman and had something similar happen to him, which would explain his disdain for Aang. Maybe the meditating sage that took his powers was an air nomad, as they are the only population known to have a close relationship with the spirit world, and their main occupation is meditation. It might even have been Monkey Yatso, who is also known to be a bit of a prankster himself. Aang obviously represents the look of his people, so the Bafoon Spirit may perceive him as the face of the sage that cursed him. Let's also not skip over the fact fact that the baboon is seen wearing an orange robe similar to the dress of air nomads, which could allude to Hanuman's father being the god of air. It also supports the idea that Hanuman came across a meditating sage, because that's probably where the son of the air god would hang around. Monkeys or apes are also known to love vibing around temples. At the same time, the baboon is seen meditating. Hanuman is often symbolized as the patron god to activities such as meditation, but that's not the focus here. Meditation is often done to provide clarity, which in the spirit's case could be an attempt to remember his given powers that had been taken by the air nomad. So this tale would completely explain the baboon's attitude toward Aang. Oh boy. Ko is the reason it took me so long to finally watch Death Note, as the Shinigami kept reminding me of the trauma Ko caused me as a child. I wasn't sure if I could handle that again. His name is a play on the Japanese word ko, which means face, combined with no, a form of Japanese dance drama that uses masks similar to the face Ko wears most often. Fun fact, the blue spirit mask Zuko wears is also based on a no mask. No performances generally focus on telling tales of traditional literature about supernatural beings transformed into human form, which refers to what Ko kind of does. A supernatural being who steals human faces. Because no performers wear masks and cannot use facial expressions to convey emotions, they express emotion through their dance movements. Notice how Ko is also dancing around Aang as he talks, in an attempt to draw emotion from him that way, just like a no performer would. Because the series had made it no secret they like to borrow ideas from Ghibli, it's speculated the design of Ko was based on Ko-Onashi, or No Face from Spirited Away. The first resemblance can be seen in their design, the cloak-like black body and white masked face. No Face is an original character, not based on any existing Japanese myth. Hayao Miyazaki revealed the design of No Face was based on Bombix mori, a silkworm, although I personally think Ko resembles the silkworm a lot more. But his body is more commonly compared to a centipede's. In terms of ability, No Face was capable of reacting to emotion just like Ko reacts to expression. No Face could ingest other beings to obtain their personality and traits, while Ko can only steal their face and voice when a person that encounters him shows emotion. But Ko's personality remains unaltered. Even their roles are similar. Just like Ko, No Face is a shapeshifter archetype, kind of hovering in between ally and antagonist. So long you don't really mess with them and play by their rules, they will both help you. But if you don't, they will happily take advantage. And I will happily move on to a less terrifying spirit. Although, I would probably be fine because I have kind of a resting bored face, but I'm very emotionally sensitive. Let's just hope I won't have to face him. Quick question, would you be able to face Ko expressionlessly? Ooh, okay. Let's dive into the influences behind our beloved fish monster. Maybe the spirits will give us the wisdom to write our own fantastical stories. So, if you'd see this walking blue spirit monster appear on screen without context, you'd probably think you're watching the Nightwalker from another Ghibli movie, Princess Mononoke, on which its design is based. However, there's an actual story behind the Nightwalker, which in itself is a spin on the Hawaiian legend of the Night Marchers. The tale goes that on the nights of honoring the Hawaiian gods, the deadly ghosts of ancient Hawaiian warriors will rise from their burial sites or rise up from the ocean to march as an army to ancient Hawaiian battle sites or other sacred places. According to the legend, the night marchers are suspended in the air, just like Aang inside La and Tui's fusion. Their feet do not touch water or ground as they move through the night, and they do not leave behind a trace of their visit. Night marchers are said to march, as the name implies, at night in darkness. During their march, witnesses may hear chants, blown conch shell tones, stomping noises, and war drums. Notice the drums and the amazing background music. Ugh, what would we do without Jeremy Zuckerman? I don't want to get a copyright strike on my first video, so if you may have to just rewatch the episode, as you probably will. Quick question, how many times have you watched Avatar The Last Airbender in its entirety? I think I'm on my 4th complete rerun. It is believed that mortals who look up at night marchers or show defiance toward them will die a brutal death, while those who bow face down to the ground showing fear or proper respect are believed to be spared by the night marcher. In fortunate cases, mortals are recognized by night marchers who happen to be ancient ancestors and will be spared from harm or death, which happens to be the case for the water tribe, being kin to Aang's previous incarnation. The visual storytelling in The Siege of the North Part 2 completely lines up to this Hawaiian legend. From the time of day, to the way it rises, to the background music, to the way the Koizilla shows mercy to the water tribe while harming the Fire Nation, and even the way it dissolves back into the ocean as if it never showed up. It's very well translated, as expected from a show that can't seem to do anything wrong. It's like the creators know everything. Oh, that brings me to our final spirit. Can you guess?
I know you're back there.
The influences that inspired Wan Shi Tong are complicated, which I guess is fitting for his all-knowing character. Let's start with his design, which is a lot easier to explain. A signature of the Avatar universe are the hybrid animals, but it may be interesting to note that the writers don't just slap two animals together and call it a day. No, Avatar's way too good for that. The same is true for Wan Shi Tong's design. The creators reconciled the Western symbol of wisdom with the Eastern symbol of wisdom, which was a smart move because it grounds the Western audience in familiarity while introducing the more foreign Eastern philosophies to evoke a sense of intrigue and novelty. In the West, the owl is portrayed as the symbol of wisdom. Here in Europe we have seen it countless of times. The owl character that represents a smart or mentoring kind of archetype. In the East, however, the serpent symbolizes wisdom, as opposed to the West where serpents symbolize corruption. In the library episode we see that Wan Shi Tong's neck can extend, which makes him look more like a snake. The serpent could also refer to yet another Hindu philosophy, known as Kundalini. Kundalini is Sanskrit for coiled snake. Still, I didn't have evidence for this influence until I heard one YouTuber say that the text on the gate before the Serpent's Pass translates to Coiled Serpent's Pass.
Aang decides to lead them through the dangerous Serpent's Pass, or Coiling Serpent's Pass, as the writing here actually says.
There's an entire yoga practice devoted to awakening the Kundalini, which is located at the base of the spine of human beings, and is associated with a source of power that can lead to enlightenment once cultivated. Enlightenment is another rough synonym for knowledge or the experience of God, the all-knowing. This could basically mean that Wan Shi Tong is in a permanent state of enlightenment. It makes sense considering he's a spirit, and enlightenment is kind of your ticket into the spirit world. So his character combines both Western and Eastern symbolism expressed through his design. I guess that makes Wan Shi Tong a snowl? Changing subject. Wan Shi Tong actually does translate to "he who knows 10,000 things" in Mandarin Chinese, but the way his name is written on screen literally translates to "hall of 10,000 knowledge," referring to the library. Quick question, what's your favorite setting in the Avatar verse? Because the library does make it to my top 3, but I'm a book snob, so no surprises there. The inspiration for Wan Shi Tong's character and motives can be found in Taoism. This is where things get complicated. I wanted to say that Wan Shi Tong can be seen as a personification of Taoism, but that would be a huge simplification of the philosophy. It's not even a concept or an idea per se. The word Tao in itself is already a vain attempt at communicating what is talked about, but it actually doesn't exist. But this would be way too difficult to explain in a kids show. So I do think Wan Shi Tong is a great introduction to Taoism, which is an immense influence on the overall show. In fact, the symbol of Taoism is Bagua, which is also the Kung Fu style that airbending moves are based on. I'm just saying this so you know I'm not just grabbing the idea that Wan Shi Tong and Taoism are linked from thin air. The philosophy is also apparent in the spirit's name, as 10,000 things is a Taoist expression for everything in the universe, or all that exists and doesn't exist. And maybe the fact that Wan Shi Tong himself also doesn't exist, because he's a spirit, sort of explains that as well. But the influence of Tao on Wan Shi Tong goes further than his name and appearance. Taoism is the English term for Tao, which loosely translates to way or path in Chinese, and refers to the natural order of life. In the show, Wan Shi Tong is very much against the idea of humans trying to destroy each other and forcing their beliefs on others. This corresponds to the Tao, which is sometimes described as the art of not forcing. In other words, Wan Shi Tong wants the humans to just go with the flow and let life sort itself out. This may even support the theory that Wan Shi Tong is against the Avatar as a mediator of life, because according to the Tao, nothing and no one should meddle with anything. And I mean, we have seen Wan Shi Tong threaten to kill Aang a time or two. Once again, I do want to stress that I don't mean to offend Taoists by claiming that a simple cartoon represents the religion. I just happen to recognize the influence of Taoism on the show, and it's a good example of how to respectively borrow from existing ideas or religions and put your own spin on them. So I guess that's it. Wow, that was a lot. If you sat through all of that, man, you're a real one. I had the idea for this video on a whim and never expected it to turn into a 4,000 word script and a 30-minute video. But here we are. I'm sorry for any errors I may have made on pronunciations or the explanation of certain lore or legends, or even for some qualitative and technical issues. I'm still kinda new at this and experimenting, trying to figure things out, but I would love to make more of these kind of videos, as well as on many other topics in regards to writing well. So if you'd like to see more of that, it would help enormously if you'd support my channel by liking, subscribing, maybe check out my Patreon too, where I post all of my video notes and resources I used in my research, templates to implement writing techniques, as well as other extras. Or maybe you would like to treat me to a coffee on Ko-Fi to help me get through endless research, scripting and editing. I completely underestimated how much work YouTube channels actually are, so massive respect to all of the YouTubers. All of this will enable me to devote more time to the channel and upload frequently. I'm already working on some new stuff, so stay tuned. All links are in the description. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and accompanying me during this re-experience of Avatar. I hope it inspired your own imagination and helped you learn ways to write it well, so you can do your story justice.